As you know, if you are a longtime friend of Bunjie, I am not sponsored by anyone. I'm really sponsored by friends of Bunjie, right? Like you. Don't think that the purpose of this video is to try and sell you something. I just like to pass along information about what I like and what I don't like. Do my best to pass that along. Recently, I did a video about my perfect crossbow setup. I am really happy with that. Part of that setup is the Swhackers, or Swhacker, whatever you want to call them. But nonetheless, I do like the Swhacker number 251 crossbow 3-inch broadheads. Been using them now for a few years. What a beautiful broadhead. Oh, I love this sight. Look at this blood. Oh, Black Eagle, I love you. And of course, Burt Coyote, you are my hero. If you are interested in trying them out this holiday season, what do we have? We have a coupon code for you, Bunjie2324. Get yourself a discount using that coupon code on swhacker.com. For years, I was hunting with a crossbow when I first started out using an arrow rig just like this, right? And when I first started, I didn't even have the Luminoc. Those were pretty sad days, let me tell you what. I really do like the Burt Coyote Luminoc. I'll be giving you some videos on that down the road. But I was using an arrow like this, a stock arrow from Excalibur, the Firebolt arrow, and I was using Excalibur's own bolt cutter broadhead. You probably thought this was a muzzy, didn't you? Aren't they all the same? They're all muzzies, right? These are what the Druries call pea shooters. My guide in Maryland once said, you know, he didn't like it when people use fixed blade broadheads because they leave a hole the size of a nickel. A broadhead like this really doesn't have the cutting diameter that I want. It does not have the broadhead reach, the cutting reach that I want. It is far too small. This broadhead has about the same cutting diameter as the Swhacker broadhead does without opening, right? When it's closed, it looks like this. It's a 1-inch cutting diameter. It's about the same thing. These are like 1 1/16, I think, and this is 1 inch. This is actually a legal broadhead. I wouldn't use it, but to hunt deer with in Pennsylvania, I think. It's certainly got the width, but it really has about the same amount of reach that the bolt cutter would have, that your fixed blade broadhead would typically have. Now, people will tell you, Rich, you can kill a deer with a field point if you want to, and all that matters is accuracy. Proper shot placement means you can kill a deer with any broadhead, right? You've heard me say it over and over. Accuracy is number one with crossbows. I certainly believe that. But I got to tell you, it really helps to have a big cutting diameter. Years ago, I shot a doe with a mechanical broadhead from Excalibur that didn't open, and I know it didn't open. I'm not just using that as some kind of excuse or something. I know it didn't open because I found the deer, and the entrance wound was the size of my pinky, right? It was the size of the shaft of the arrow. The exit wound, well, there wasn't one. It didn't reach the other side. That exact broadhead actually hit the hide, didn't open, it penetrated, it double lunged that doe, but she still ran 200 yards all the way to the property line. I was very lucky that she didn't actually cross onto the neighbors. There was no blood trail, right? It was a high entrance wound the size of my pinky. You don't have a blood trail. That deer still went 200 yards or so with a hole the size of my pinky in both lungs. That's not enough. And I was sold from that moment on that a bigger cutting diameter is important. For one of these, a fixed blade broadhead, maybe you don't have to worry about whether it opens or not, but you're still left with an inadequate cutting diameter. That's the problem. The beauty of this is you'll get a pass-through on older equipment, right? You don't have to worry so much about getting a pass-through. A broadhead like this will penetrate because it doesn't expend any energy upon impact in order to open it up. It's already open. The downside of this is that it doesn't cut, right? It doesn't have a lot of cutting diameter or cutting reach. I like reach. I like something that's going to reach out and cut as much on its way through that deer as possible. The other downside of this is if they make them bigger, right? So they start getting that cutting reach, that cutting diameter, all of a sudden now they don't fly real well, right? They don't fly like our field points. They don't even fly consistently from one broadhead setup, one arrow setup to the next, in my experience. And that's one of the reasons I got rid of these and switched from this sort of broadhead to a mechanical. Enter the Swhacker. I love this broadhead. Been using it for a few years now. Now I want to show you, I've actually got 2 bands on here to make sure it doesn't open prematurely. It's not because I'm concerned about the design of the crossbow broadhead. I'm not concerned that this is a poor design, that somehow out of my brand new high-powered crossbow it's going to open prematurely. I'm not really worried about that so much as the fact that all of my broadheads that I'm using from Swhacker now are ones that I bought a couple of years ago. I am reusing all of them with fresh blades. I replaced the blades, taking a little Allen wrench there, did a video on that. It's not a bad process, but the problem is my bands are 2 years old as well, right? Or more. They're just like a piece of tape or something. And I don't want those to deteriorate if you've handled them with the oils on your fingers and sit through the rain and the sun and everything else, and they're exposed to all the elements. I put a couple of bands on here. When you get a package of these, they give you a whole bunch of bands, right? So I just saved the bands. I've had no problem with them opening. I can't see that that makes any difference whatsoever. But that way I don't have to worry about it. If you're shooting 500 feet per second, you know, there's a lot of energy that is pushed right onto this little knock. Another Burt Coyote Luminox. These are the GTC knocks that I use for the SWAT X1. And on these Dragon Claw arrows from Wyvern Creations. These are part of my perfect crossbow setup. I really believe that. These things are just performing very, very well. Very happy with it. So that's why I'm doing this video. That's why I'm telling you about it. Wyvern Creations just like their stuff. I don't have any deal with Burt Coyote's Luminox other than a coupon code for them too. If you want a discount on those, that's just a coupon code where I get 10% off when I order them. You get 10% off when you order them, right? So not sponsored by them, just really like their stuff. Now what I'm going to do, I've got more bands, so I'm going to go ahead and pop these bands off, okay? There's one. I'll just see if I can break it or get it off there. They don't really want to come off. They're pretty tough little bands. Like, I really don't worry about it. See, like, didn't break the band. Both of them are, I could reuse them. Ferrule, chisel tip, nice chiseled, heavy-duty chisel tip there. This goes into the deer. These 2 little blades here hit the deer and catch the hide, start to cut in there, but when they hit a rib, they hit the hide, whatever that happens, they pop those bands off, and then they open up. And when they open up, you have a 3-inch cutting diameter. I love it. I love this broadhead. And then this is what actually does all the damage. So you can see how this is going to work. You're going to be into the deer that far, okay, up to these blades, before these things open up. So that's into your deer, right? Now these are opening up when they hit the hide. They have to start opening. They don't have a choice, right? They don't have a choice. And I haven't had a single instance now in maybe 24 deer where they have not performed exactly perfect. A 1-inch entrance wound and a 3-inch exit wound, right? And the only question, I guess, is, you know, these are opening up and they're like, let's say they're like this going through the deer. Do they grab, this is moving pretty fast because it's coming out of one of our modern crossbows, right? Do they open up fast enough to do 3 inches worth of damage? The exit wounds are always 3 inches, and the Bloodtrails are good, so that's the big thing for me. It's still better than this. This doesn't ever get bigger than 1 1/16. The beauty of this, too, is that while it's closed like that, it flies through the air. It doesn't have much of drag. It doesn't have much of a profile. So it's pretty accurate, right? I haven't had too much trouble with our crossbows. These shoot, out of most of our crossbows that Genevieve, my daughter, and I use, we're shooting pretty much the same as field points. I honestly believe that, out 40 yards and maybe beyond that, out to 60 yards, something like that. With my modern crossbows, the Death Stalker, for example, that one's shooting 400 feet per second or so. These fly identical to the field points. I'm safe with them at 40. I killed a deer at 52 yards. Arrow went exactly where I wanted it to at 52 yards. With the SWAT X1, the farthest shot I've taken with that on an animal is 32 yards, but I can tell you with both deer this year that I killed with that crossbow, the Killer Instinct SWAT X1, dead on accuracy with these. I did, on the SWAT X1, have to sight that crossbow in for this broadhead specifically. However, it was shooting them a little lower at distance, and I think that has to do with these arrows not spinning as much out of that crossbow. Bloodtrails, that's what we want to talk about, right? What do these things do? I have had consistently good blood trails that I can follow. Not all blood trails are created equal. I've had a few where you're looking for blood, that sort of thing, but I've had really no problem finding that blood, and I can tell you that every deer that we've shot with the Swhackers, 50 yards max. The other thing is we're shooting a little bit farther up front with these things this year. We're not in the Vital V or the Bunjie triangle anymore. We're shooting right through the shoulders with these on each of our crossbows. And what I'm seeing with that, when you do that with this kind of a cutting diameter, we don't have any trouble with penetration. It's going out the other side of the deer because, again, we're not spending all of our energy on impact. And then our exit wound with a 3-inch cutting diameter, that cutting on the inside through all the vitals and then going out the exit wound, that's all with fresh blades that have not seen bone yet or hide yet. They see that only on the way out after the ferrule has already poked through the other side. Only then does that energy need to push those 3-inch blades out the other side of that animal. But they're sharp blades, a lot easier to push those through. No matter what you do with your fixed blade broadhead, this thing is dulled up. It is never as sharp going through that deer or coming out the other side as it is when it makes first impact. After it goes through, it starts over 100% sharp. I did have a comment from somebody because after they go through the deer, these blades are all bent up and misused and abused and all that good stuff. And I did have somebody comment that, hey, that's a loser deal for me. That's no good because your blade's beat up after it goes through the deer. I could not care less about that. I don't care. If I can't reuse it, that's fine. I just get a different one. But if I can reuse the ferrule, that's great. I'm buying new blades. I got packages of those. I can put them in place at any given time if the ferrule is still nice and straight for me. If this thing is all bent up and beat up going through a deer, that's really what I want it to do. It killed the deer. It used itself up. It gave everything it had so that I could collect my deer at the end of a very beautiful blood trail. And that's ultimately all I ask out of the broadhead. So it does not bother me at all if these are not real sturdy blades. I don't care. They are performing perfectly, coming out the other side of the deer, leaving me a big exit wound that spills blood all over the forest floor. What more can you ask for, right? And I'm reusing them. I mean, check this out. Hopefully it'll show up, but you can see right here a mark on the ferrule. I don't know if that's going to show it or not. Maybe we can show you. But there's marks on the ferrule. That's from these blades coming down and slamming against the ferrule. Most of your mechanical broadheads have that sort of evidence as to whether they were opened or not. But that is proof that these have been used before. I also love the fact these come with a matched practice point. If you look, it looks just like the original. It looks just like the real broadhead. Perfect. That's what you want. Have some confidence, some faith in the fact that that's going to work. And what you do with these when you reuse them, you put them on here. I do this with, take the arrow out, and I put it on there and I spin it and make sure that that practice point spins nice. And then that's when I test my arrows with it. And then before I hunt with them, I actually do the same thing and spin. It actually looks pretty good even with the blades open, but I spin them with the blades closed and the rubber bands on before I hunt with them to make sure that those look like they're going to fly good. But an arrow spinner, really, really good tool. Good thing to have. You want to spin them. You want to use the practice point. You want to sight in for them perfect because accuracy, again, is #1 with crossbows. Again, not sponsored by anybody, but if you're interested in the Swhackers, use the coupon code, get on board, get a set, try them out next year, try them out if you have some hunting seasons, some hunting time left this season. Give them a try. Bunjie approves. And until next time, all hail Bunjie.